What is happening, beautiful people around the world? Welcome to another episode of From Half Court for today, Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. I am one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, alongside the man in space, the man that's too good for this place, Jeff Iafrady. Jeff, what's happening, my guy?
I got close with Elon again. Relationship's amended, so I'm back in space.
There you go.
I'm chilling. No, it's good, man. We're coming to the close of the season. I know it's sad because we won't get to watch at least Pistons basketball. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, to be honest with you. They only won one of the last 20. But I will say, after watching the women's title game, I was excited. It was better, in my opinion. We'll get to it, but better than the men's. But here we go. We're getting into an interesting time for Pistons fans. We got the lottery, the draft in a couple months. I can't wait. I'm fired up today.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, man. And also joining us, always makes me fired up, the man himself, the legend from Marquette, Michigan, Troy Sergey. Troy, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, man. Good to have you here, Sean. Really enjoying this last week of the Final Four. It's crazy, like to Jeff's point. Next week when we do our pod, no Pistons. Again, still debating if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we got playoffs coming, and we all know that is a good thing. So playoffs on the horizon. This year, more than ever, we said it last year, we even said it the year before that, this is going to be the best playoffs. Well, this is going to be the best playoffs because I think we have a wide open West, and I think the East can get really competitive as well. So this is going to be a very, very fun 2023 NBA playoff basketball.
Troy, you are a sly mother for slipping in that inside joke at the beginning of that. So a little bit of backstory. Troy and I met Troy in college, and he's one of my best friends, always, has been for a long time. And I had him over at my house one time. We're all hanging out. We're watching UFC, and, we're just sitting there having a conversation. And Troy turns and looks at me and says, "Sean, it's good to have you here, man." And I look at Troy, and I'm like, "Troy, this is my house. Like, I'm going to be here whether it's good for me to be here or not. Like, what are you talking about?" It's one of my favorite Troy stories ever.
That's why we love Troy.
Oh, 100%. One authentically Troy, without a doubt. But, guys, speaking of authentically Troy Weaver's about to be his authentic self this offseason, and he's going to be able to spread his wings and really fly. I know people are focused in on the, 19 of 20 losses. I know people are talking about who should be starting these final games and who should be getting how many minutes and when. And I also have been seeing a lot of, general skepticism about whether Troy Weaver even has a plan and knows what he's doing. Guys, do you think the effect of just all these losses, do you think people are just losing sight of the reasons that there are to be optimistic? Or do you think we're just at the point where we just need to get this season over with so we can start talking about lottery, so we could just really begin to look forward?
You go first, Troy.
I was going to say, I think the losses, are really blinding the minds of some Pistons fans. And I mean, there's some truth in that too. No one likes to lose games, but I think when we're looking at the roster that we're putting out, especially these past 10 games, we're not even putting out, obviously, our star player that we've been missing all season, Cade Cunningham, but also, Bojan not available, Isaiah Stewart not available, so we're not even putting out our best roster.
Alec Burks, Hamidou Diallo, we don't have our sixth man, we don't have our seventh man, we already got our eighth man.
Right, and a lot of these other teams are competing for either play-in spots or playoff spots or even just seeds. Some of the even better competition that we've played the past month and a half. You can't tell me that this roster that we're putting out there is ready to compete and win games against teams that are competing for their lives for playoff spots. I think that's, to me, the most important thing to look at is, we're looking to, develop our players these last couple of games. We're not looking to beat these teams or to go on a 5-game winning streak. That's just not a reality. But I think to your point, Sean, we need the season to get over because the losses are blinding our fan base.
Well, and like, listen, I don't want to like, and I don't want to say it either as like we're talking down to the fan base or anything either, because I think we all can empathize and I think we
Yes.
all can agree, that it sucks. Let's just call it what it is. Tuning in over the last 2+ months and looking at a team and knowing, almost certainly what the outcome is going to be. That's not that's not exactly, like what's the most fun thing in the world. But Jeff, I would argue that, like unlike when the Pistons have felt, have been in these situations before, there's actually being like progress being made. There's actually a plan. You just have to actually look for it.
Right. And I think people get lost in trying to judge progress on wins and losses, which is not the way to go about it. And I get losses are irritating. I mean, it sucks to lose. Troy hit on it. You both hit on it. I mean, it stinks. And I know people now at this point in the season, it's April 3rd, and all you can do now is go on Twitter and debate should Duren be starting over Wiseman. Like, it's all we got. Like, there's not much to discuss. So I get the frustration, but some of these conversations, man, like it's getting to the point where it's a little ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. I think the Wiseman versus Duren conversation is ridiculous. I mean, we talked about it here on this pod last week about why Wiseman deserves all the runway and he deserves all the opportunity to show something that he hasn't been gotten to show since really at all in the NBA. Like, he was drafted to a contender. So for Wiseman, this is important. This is an important stretch of games from the trade deadline to the end of the season, and we need to find out what we have in Wiseman. And for people that are saying, well, we have to find out what we have in Duren, I assure you two things. One, you kind of know what you have in Duren. A lot of untapped potential, but he's under contract. Wiseman is under one more year of a contract, and you're going to have to make a decision. So a lot more pressures with Wiseman, so I get why he's playing. Right now, it's all about player development, and to me, with Duren 11 and 8 over his last 10 games, 60% from the field, he's playing fine. Wiseman's looked good. Like, there's a lot of positive things. Ivy seems like he's tweaked his shot a little bit. He's been playing well. So, again, no complaints from me. I don't get why that's a conversation, but at the end of the day, when you're losing games, I guess anything could be a conversation at this point.
Right. And it always just turns like to, well, next year better be different, or there better be like some like there better be something better on the way. And it's like, well, yeah, like, did you not see like last offseason when they deferred all that salary cap money to next offseason? Like, the team, like we I feel like we've been talking about for like over like a year now that like the team has been, like really positioning, like I remember this time last year we talked about, hey, for the first time in a while, the Pistons are going to like have some money to work with. And then instead, they chose to wait another year.
Right.
Because they saw the value and, whatever happens this season would benefit the organization, because, if they were to go into a situation, make progress, Cade has a great year, they can compete and try to get to a play-in spot. That's moving forward, and that's progress. It's also progress to be able to get your players, important minutes to develop, allow them to grow, get, be in situations that they normally wouldn't be able to get in, and then end up with some of the best odds in a generational draft lottery. Like, I think people, it's like, people are like, oh, well, what's the point in all this? Like, I don't think this team's deliberately been losing games on purpose over the last couple of months. But I mean, they haven't been fielding their best lineups either, right?
And that's the point I want to make too, with saying if you're judging progress by wins and losses, because yes, typically you do look at wins and losses, but context matters a lot. And if you look at the context of what this team is right now, all the injuries that are currently on the roster, the guys they've shut down for the rest of the season, it's clear to me winning isn't their number one concern. Right. It's knowing what they have, and I think people need to understand that more. And if you do, you'll sleep better at night. I promise you.
Right. And Troy, it's like, and people like, oh, like there's even arguments, like about like, oh, well, like what about like Marvin Bagley? Like, why can't he be like the odd man out? Like, why can't we be giving minutes like these guys and like, like not as many to him? Well, I mean, Troy, if we are going to indeed, like make some moves this offseason, if we are going to like potentially make any trades, some of these guys have to have value, right?
Right. Absolutely, Sean. And I think just looking ahead too, going to your point a little bit earlier that you said about Troy Weaver, some people not knowing if he has a plan. Guys, Troy Weaver has a plan, right? The guy is going to get free agents. He's going to have a good draft pick. We've talked about this so many times. I don't need to repeat, right? But I think it's so important for our fan base to understand the position that this team is in moving forward. Yes, the losses suck, but I think developing players like we have seen, and then seeing their trade value, because like you said, some of them have to go. There has to be value there in order to make the pieces happen. That is setting us up even to a better position than we are. And so I think my message to all of us here is that positions matter. The position that this franchise is in is going to be even different than we said before, like a Houston or even a San Antonio, right? That's kind of the message that I'm wanting to preach to our fans.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's a great one, to have, like the simple truth of the matter is, and I've answered this before, like people are like, oh, well, like Sean, like what are, like moments, what are losses that you do get angry about? Like what are the moments that you look at this team and you go, okay, well, what are we doing here? Where's the progress? And to that, like to answer your question, I go to losses like against the Washington Wizards in the 2017 season when we had Blake Griffin and we lost by like 30 or 40 points. I think back to, the Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, team after making the playoffs, giving up 58 points at home to Anthony Davis. Like I think of watching those painstaking blowouts in the first round to Giannis Antetokounmpo, even watching us, like down 3-0, give our best punch. Reggie Jackson played perhaps the best basketball he played in almost 5 years, and it literally didn't matter because what we had built was just not sustainable to win a game in a playoff series, let alone a quarter in a playoff series. So, like, if you're asking me, like, when I get mad, like, those are moments where there's no direction. Those are moments where you question what's happening. Here, when you're losing by 1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder, or you're having double-digit losses because a third of your roster, when you're already one of the youngest rosters in the league, is out, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's about picking your battles. I think that's number one. And number two is, you mentioned two important things, direction and sustainability. When Troy first got to Detroit, he does it. He talked about this too, and this is why it's important. Rod always says, listen to what they tell you. Troy mentioned it. We don't want to just arrive. We want to arrive and stay there. Like that's how they're building, right? That's why they're collecting so many young talents, right? You had Marvin Bagley last year, and now you're getting Wiseman. You got Duren, you got Ivy. Cade's coming back. You have money in free agency. Like if you don't think the Pistons are building something, I don't know what you're paying attention to. And I think that's the bigger point to take away. If you know Troy and you know how he's operated, he's getting players he likes, especially players for cheap, like a James Wiseman, guys deprived assets that, from their former team, they're just pretty much dumping them away. And again, from that, it looks bad. But for Wiseman to play as well as he's played, like there's a lot of positives. I don't think people look at the positives. I know there's a lot of negatives, but the negatives are just the wins and losses. Like if you're looking at player development, to me, it's been mostly positive from what you've seen out of the young players.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, are there moments where you're scratching your head going, what in the heck are they doing? Absolutely. Because they're all 21, 22-year-old kids. And it's not only, like, to your point, Jeff, of, like, like what they talked about at the beginning of the season. Another thing they said at the beginning of this season was, what have these last 2 years been about? Breaking it down and getting this team about to ground zero. And they had finally gotten, and they had said that at the beginning of this season, they were finally at ground zero. And now it's time to go out and learn to compete. And when you're starting from ground zero, and then the complete foundation of ground zero is out the book, and you're just going from there, like that, like I think it's like important to understand, like you said, listening to what they say, but also listening to like why they're saying it, right?
Right. And even on top of that, I mean, you traded Jeremy Grant and you got younger. Like, yeah, Bojan, I'm talking the adding rookies to the rotation. You had Ivy in the rotation. You had Duren in the rotation. You had Wiseman in the rotation. Like, those are three. And if you want to count, well, this is technically Wiseman's true rookie year. If you want to count him as a rookie or whatever it is, you got three guys that don't have that much experience that are playing significant amounts of time for you. Like, yeah, there's going to be ups and downs. Like, that's what I'm not understanding, especially when you shut down really Bojan, like all your veterans. Like you're just rolling. You're talking about a team of 21-year-olds now, right now at this current point, the losing stretch they're on, it's only 20, 21, 22-year-olds. That's it.
Yep. They've had more high-quality young talent in the past 3 or 4 years of Troy Weaver's tenure than the Pistons have had in the past 25 years. And I will keep making that reminder and making that argument, because it's not even an argument. It's not even an opinion. That's just straight up facts.
Yeah, it's factual.
So when I see stuff like maybe Stan Van Gundy should have been the coach after he was let go, like from the front office, or like Troy Weaver doesn't really have a plan. He's just tanking and hoping for lottery luck. I just go, yeah, no, that's not how this works. Again,
Do people forget Stan Van Gundy's tenure?
Yes.
They forgot his tenure. They straight up forgot his tenure.
Troy,
I have.
They also didn't pay attention to his tenure in New Orleans either, where he literally was out after a season, and then Willie Green was brought in. They talked, oh my gosh, what a breath of fresh air he's been. How fantastic he's been for this team. Like people keep forgetting this guy is literally like, he's freaking kryptonite to young locker rooms. I love Stan Van Gundy. Absolute brilliant basketball mind. Was not right for this team at all.
Yeah, and even apparently they didn't see the Spencer Dinwiddie interview. Me and Sean talked about this in a video, so if you're watching this now, go check that out. But Troy, Spencer even talked about this. He went on a podcast, and he talked about the practices and being under Stan Van Gundy. He said it was awful. And the fact you talk about not letting young players develop, there you go, Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah. Right, exactly, and like that's just like a small example. Like, and at the end of the day, like we can go over, like what like Stan Van Gundy has done. Like the simple truth, the fact is, he did nothing to earn coming back for another season at all. Like people want to forget the reason why we're in this position in the first place. A lot of the reasons are because of decisions that Stan Van Gundy made. Yep. So that's just fact. But anyway, that's a guy like, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to call anyone out. It's just the reality is when these are this is the dialogue we're having, this is the place that we're at in the season. I just think it's important to realize when we're just saying things out of emotion and when we're actually saying things out of fact, because a lot of the same people that are saying some of these things in their next breath talk about how much they love guys like Killian Hayes, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, how they love all the talent on this team. It's like you can't have both. You can't.
This is why we always revisit what Rod said. Rod said, who's saying it? Why are they saying it? And what do they have to gain from it? And that's important on Twitter. Rod, his little rule book, I think it was like 4 or 5 rules. It's spot on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. A lot of people saying stuff when it's just really convenient to say it. But anyway, guys, let's talk about another pretty big thing happening in the NBA world. As of a couple days ago, we officially have a new collective bargaining agreement. And with that is coming a lot of changes, to the NBA world. I would say the most notable changes, off the surface, are the mid-season tournament is officially happening. And then it also sounds like all NBA teams are removing positions from them as well. So it sounds like first, second, and third team all NBA will no longer have position restrictions and will rather be, voted upon who are the best players on those teams. So, first of all, I think the obvious thing is, thank God a deal was done. A deal was brought, because that means that we're not going to have any lockouts for at least the next few years, right?
Which is exciting, because that 2011 one was a nightmare for NBA fans.
just the thought of a lockout in general, and just losing basketball. Like we had lost basketball a couple years ago because of the COVID pandemic. If we had lost basketball, over the next couple of years, just over egos and arguments, it's just like, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Can I be honest though here? I don't know if I love the mid-season tournament.
That's where I wanted to go, and that's exactly what I wanted to ask.
I absolutely hate it, man. The reason why I hate it, and I know why the NBA is pushing for it, I get that. But as a fan, you play and players play to win the NBA championship. the fact that you have another distraction, and I get this is a part of it to keep the regular season booming and to keep interest in the regular season because now you have a midseason tournament. But I don't get it. I don't like it. But again, I get it from the NBA, the owner's perspective. But as a fan, okay, I get a tournament in the middle of the season, great. But let's be honest here. No one gives a damn. No one gives a damn about the midseason tournament. It's about the NBA championship.
So
like,
yeah.
So that's my only critique. Not a big fan of the midseason tournament. I'm not.
Right.
And I didn't like it when they first suggested it. What was it, like a year ago? And now it's coming to fruition.
Right. Obviously, like this is, like an idea that's heavily influenced by European soccer, Premier League, like a lot of these leagues do mid-season tournaments and invitationals. It sounds like from the proposal, this is per Shams Charania, it'll be regular season games that are going to be basically hyped up and heightened as in-season tournament games, and there will be $500,000 per player on the winning team. Now, obviously, like $500,000 is a lot of money. Not saying that's not the case. However, we talk about the salaries and how much these players are making on a year-to-year basis. It's not necessarily a ton of money anymore. Even bottom of the bench guys are getting about $2 million a year. But I mean, $500,000 per player, like that is significant. I guess. There's just not a perfect solution here because here's the clear problem, right? Like we're trying to make like regular season basketball matter again, right?
Right.
But making up, like when we're just making up stakes, I don't know if that's the way that we're gonna get like mid-season basketball to matter again, right?
Right.
Like,
and I'm not sure
it's on the players.
Right. Right. And I'm not sure really the answer with, what to do, but I guess I'm kind of with Jeff with just like looking back at, the past, 10, 15 years of, me following the NBA. The best memories I have of the NBA are during the playoffs. And I just think what the NBA has going for in the playoffs, I think are so fun each and every year that it'd be hard to compete. I'm not sure if they're trying to compete, right, the mid-season tournament with the playoffs, but I think an 82-game season is long. So I understand the point, again, like the owners are trying to make, because an 82-game season is long, but I just feel like there's something better we can do than that. And maybe that's just nostalgia talking. I don't know.
Right. Well, and I think it is important to realize this is all experimentation, right? Inherently, like at the ground level, there is experimentation like at play here. And when I do think of when I put the glass half full approach on, or when I try to think from an optimistic standpoint, there's things that we've seen in the past that face a lot of scrutiny, like the play-in tournament, is the last big experiment that the NBA has made. And a lot of people are like, this is stupid. These games are pointless. No one's going to want to, no one's going to really try to for a play-in spot. But we've seen that's just simply not true. In fact, We've seen the opposite. We've seen that people do want to make push-ins for the play-in. Now, am I saying that teams are going to make trades and do things for the mid-season tournament? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is you look at teams for example, I look at teams like the Grizzlies. I look at teams like the Pelicans. I even look at teams like the Trailblazers. I look at young scrappy teams, even the Pistons. I just think about I just think about the fact of there are going to be players that are with heightened stakes that are going to want to go out and make a statement. This might not be, something where the veterans or the championship contenders are super invested and this is what they're going out and playing for. But in the same breath, I think you have a lot of young players who want to go out and make a name for themselves. This to me looks exactly like tell me the Sacramento Kings wouldn't get hype or generate excitement out of winning a midseason tournament.
Right. Showcase opportunity for the young talent. Right.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is, because at least the play-in, it's related to the playoffs. This is completely irrelevant. And to your point, Sean, you made a great point about veterans and guys making significant money. You think Giannis, LeBron, Jason Tatum, no, these guys don't give a damn about the midseason tournament. And they won't, they never will. Does it help them get in the Hall of Fame? Okay, move on. We'll go to the playoffs. We'll go to the championship games. We'll go to the Western Conference Finals, the Eastern Conference Finals. The midseason tournament is purely, to your point, probably more targeted against teams that probably know we have a better chance at winning this and making a name for ourselves, maybe right now, and then further down the line we'll compete for a title, rather than teams right now that are like, hey, let's go get the midseason tournament, let's go win it all. And then you think there'll be a mid-season tournament hangover now? Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm not in love with it, but again, it's innovative, and I'm willing to give it a chance.
Theoretically, maybe teams could build confidence too by winning something like that to push them into a greater playoff position.
The last thing I need is the Grizzlies winning the midseason tournament. I don't want any of that on social media. I don't want any of that hype, because I know what certain teams will do with it. But I am excited to see it, just to see how it goes, just see how the fans react to it. If people are in love with it or not.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to, find some way to make games in October and November and December mean more, because it really has become, especially like in the NBA world, like for all intents and purposes, people don't talk about basketball until the week after the Super Bowl. Like because people look at regular season basketball games in November or December and go, "Oh, those mean nothing." And a lot of those, I know another thing that they're doing to try and address some of the load management issues, and some of the things that we're talking about, making regular season basketball matter. In addition to some of the changes with like the All NBA team with like the position restrictions, they also added minimum game requirements in order to be nominated for awards like MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, things like that, which I personally think was a long overdue change to be made. Do you guys think that this will make a impact on load management? Do you think we will see players, or do you think, because the limit I believe is at 65 games. Do you think that's really enough to really incentivize players to not, because that still leaves a good amount of room for load management, does it not?
Yeah,
seems like they're addressing it without really addressing it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. For me, I've been on both sides of load management. For certain players, I get it. For others, I don't. Like, the argument is always that young fan that pays money, or his family pays money to go see a player and he's on the bench. I've had that happen to me a bunch of times, especially growing up and seeing players. So I get the frustration. I get both sides of it. So the fact that you have minimum game requirements, I love it. I do. And I don't know if 65. Like, of course, guys are going to take nights off still, but if you can at least, put a cap on it, I guess, is the right way to go. At least elite players that are chasing MVPs, chasing Defensive Player of the Years, whatever it is, at least now there's a requirement. So I love it, but I don't think this stops load management. Guys are still going to miss games for whatever reason.
I think it's more of a Band-Aid type of thing, Band-Aid on a bigger problem. But I do think it's better than not addressing the issue at all, right? But I think, because, awards matter to players, right? Those are something that is going to be a motivation to them all season long. And, I think of even guys in the NBA who have the higher ceiling of numbers of games that they play, in that 70 marks. Names aren't really coming to my head right now, but guys who are playing above, 70, 75 games. Those are the players that understand that, okay, even if you're not feeling 100%, if you're 80 or 70%, you're still going to go out there and play.
Giannis is a good one. Giannis always.
Giannis is a good one, right?
He's a good example.
Well, and even then, availability is a skill. Like, it is a talent. Like, in the truth of the fact is, we see guys, who face injury problems on a year-to-year basis. Being injury prone isn't always just because, I just have bad luck with injuries. Like, a lot of it comes down to, how do you take care of your body? How do you prepare, with your diet, with your conditioning? What are the things that you're doing to put yourself in a position to be on a court on a night-to-night basis? And listen, we especially the stars in this league, are some of the greatest conditioned athletes on this planet. And, we're not saying that, that the regular season means nothing, but when you're talking about like Jeff, you talk about how we face this all the time. Like, we're just one of the many markets where, it's just like an inherent, we have to make the joke where we look at a game like, oh man, it'd be awesome to see Ja if he plays. It'd be incredible to see LeBron if he plays. It's just like that's the thing to me. Side note, This is a take that's been brewing for a while, and I think I'm ready to finally say it. I'm done giving players credit for All-Star games until they actually do anything in an All-Star game of consequence. If we want to if all these players want to have all these All-Star appearances next to their name and like have it be like an accolade in their career, and then the same light show up and act like the night is just a joke to them, then fine. I'll just not give you credit for it because you clearly don't care.
Yeah, if you're gonna roll out, take 15 shots and all 15 are from 3, I mean, we got a problem. Like that's a lot with All-Star game is now. It's sad. I was talking to Terry Foster the other day, and he just comparing the eras of All-Star games. It's crazy. It's crazy that how much guys back then took it personally to go out there and win. Kobe obviously set that when he played. Michael Jordan, like Magic, all these guys set the tone. Nowadays, even LeBron trying to set the tone. It doesn't even matter. Like guys are like, hey, we're playing pickup basketball with no defense. I shouldn't even say pickup basketball because that would be probably the wrong word to describe it. I've seen better pickup games at LA Fitness than what I'm seeing at All-Star Weekend. It's so bad.
Right. Well, and
the Rising Stars game though, Rising Stars game is entertaining. Those guys actually give a damn.
Well, and again, that just comes back to the problem of not to sound like an old head or like a boomer or anything, but it's like when you see all the, when you have all these discussions, it does become a little tiresome at a certain point to the general population that one of the conversations we have to have is how do we get these guys to play with effort and competitive fire on a night-to-night basis? How do we get these games to have stakes in November the same way that they do in March or April or May, right? Like we understand inherently the playoffs are not like the same as the regular season. There is a heightened level there. Absolutely. But those 82 games that you're playing that determine the standings and the whole thing for the playoffs, like those should probably mean something, right? Especially it's just it's a whole mess to me. But yeah, 100%. But speaking of a whole mess to me, the Dallas Mavericks still keep just bumbling down this road. We're officially at a point, guys, where after making the Western Conference Finals last year, Luka Doncic is going to miss the play-in tournament. He's not even going to make the play-in, man.
I heard the other day talking about Jalen Brunson's season, the two teams that learned the most of how valuable Jalen Brunson is, of course, the New York Knicks, and second, the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember being reminded the other day of the number that they could have signed him to last year. They literally had on the table, they could have signed a 4-year, $52 million extension to keep that guy in house. And I mean, like, you even look at like the team that like made it to the conference finals last year. Like, not only like do they not have Brunson, but they also don't have Spencer Dinwiddie run that team anymore. I'm pretty sure Maxi Kleber is even out due to injury right now. So like they don't even have him.
The other night though. Yeah.
He's in and out of the lineup. But like they ultimately, like Dorian Finney-Smith, he's not there anymore. Right. It's just like you go and look at like all the things that like made like that, like some of the chips that really contributed to them getting there. I mean, it's just, the path of Luka Doncic staying in Dallas long term is looking rather bleak.
Yeah, giving up 130 to Atlanta and 130 to Miami is probably not. I mean, we knew how bad this team would be defensively, but I mean, Kyrie had 40 and they still lost. Like, I love Kyrie, but let's be honest here. They need more than just Kyrie.
Well,
but it goes to what you said, Sean. It's, talking about this team offensively isn't the issue.
Right.
They're going to find
Kyrie's not even the problem.
Yeah, right. It's defensively. They can't. Anyone can score on this team.
What was the first thing I said after this trade happened? This team is going to set NBA defense back 50 years. And what have they done? They've set NBA defense back 60 years. It's incredible. Like, and you look at the matchups. It's the fact that it happens against the Hornets twice. It's the fact that it's happening against not these great teams. And the fact that Luka and Kyrie have only won 4 games together while in the lineup. Like, That is a yikes on bikes moment,
Right.
especially.
And they're 3-1 without Luka and with Kyrie playing. I mean that is just insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're better without when they just have Luka. Like
Right.
it seemed for whatever reason, offensively it's not the issue, but defensively, my goodness,
Yeah.
it's bad. It's
Yeah.
real bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Troy, I know we talked last week just about like, like when you saw them in person, just like how small they looked and things like that. Like, like I just, think about the fact of even if they somehow like, got to a play-in tournament game, like they would have just gotten smacked by any of these teams.
Mathematically, they still can, but it's just unlikely, right?
Very unlikely. And it's like now they're kind of in this weird spot of, do we push for the play-in and try and salvage this run and really try to like win our final few games? Or should we see about possibly keeping our top 10 protected pick this season because their other assets coming up are not going to be there, which by the way, if they lose this pick this offseason, that'll be thanks to the Kristaps Porzingis move. Like you just keep looking back at everything they've done, and it's like, why? Like just why?
Hey, they have 3 home games left. Okay, 3 games left of the season, all at home, and it's the Kings, the Bulls, and the Spurs. Now, the Spurs should be a win. Bulls maybe. Kings probably not. I mean, they kind of have to win all 3 if they want to at least have some kind of shot. So it might be better to. I don't know, Sean.
Yeah, and even then, like let's say that they do, like there's still an entire game back behind the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I mean we saw like how good they've been how good they've been of late. I mean even the Minnesota Timberwolves, as much as like we make fun of them, like they've at least like shown something. Which speaking of them, another team that's just kind of in like that similar spot. Rudy Gobert and Cat are finally in the lineup together, and the results are, it's not good. Like
Gotta trade Cat.
I literally, what did I say right after they traded for Rudy Gobert? They're probably gonna have to trade Cat eventually now. Like they just straight up made that like more than likely their next move, right?
Right.
Jeff, have you watched any of the Timberwolves? What are your thoughts on this team, man?
No, and I will not moving forward. Like after they acquired Gobert, I didn't even tune. I tuned into I believe one game, and I don't even know if Cat was playing, to be honest with you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
stop tuning into the Timberwolves. The only time I watch them is when they play the Pistons. I could give a damn. We knew that was a disaster when it happened, and it's kind of panning out that way.
Yeah,
I've tuned in a few times, Sean, but it's because of one reason only, and that's Anthony Edwards, because he's been playing well this year, like really well.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's a stud.
But absolutely electric.
And he's worth watching, in my opinion. But yeah, the rest of the team, not so much.
It comes back to the same thing, though. We talk about like how good Anthony Edwards has been. It's going to be a similar thing here with Luka Doncic, where like you show like and you have these young guys, or you see a lot in, but in the same light, like if the trajectory of what you can build around them is, if that only gets tighter and tighter as these guys are getting better and better, you're just going to be in these really awkward situations because, like, let's say Luka wants out and Dallas is going to have to try to find it. Like, how do you quantify the value of Luka Doncic in a trade? How do you quantify, like, the value of Anthony Edwards in it, like in particular? Because, like, you're making bets on futures, on ceilings. You're like especially if you're trading for Luka Doncic. I mean, we might be approaching like double digit first round picks. Like that's not a ridiculous thing to say.
Well, the big thing was, what is KD going to go for? And then we saw what KD went for. And now you kind of have a better measuring stick because all we had to go off was Rudy Gobert. And I think that was a falsified measuring stick because we all know he wasn't worth what he got. So even Kevin Durant, he's younger. I mean, he's a potential Hall of Fame player. Look at his age. I can't even imagine what it would be. Like, multiple young players, damn near double-digit first round. I mean, it would be insane. But he's worth everyone. He's worth every piece.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you talk about, like, on the other hand, like, if if you're Dallas, how, what in the world, what moves are out there to make this tenable? Do you bring Kyrie back?
Yeah.
That might be
I
their
don't think you
best
can.
option.
It's like the old thing when people say when you trade a player like Kevin Durant or Luka, you're not winning that trade. You're just trying to get what you can get. They're not getting anything in return worth Kevin Durant. I like Mikal Bridges a lot. He'll never be Kevin Durant.
Right.
It is what it is. So for Luka, you'll never get anything close to Luka back, but you're hoping some of those first round picks he can maybe, just maybe, find somebody close to Luka. But it's a lose-lose situation when you have to trade someone like that, of that caliber.
Yeah. It is 100%. And I think as the player mobility era just keeps going on, as we see guys, requesting, trades earlier and earlier into their contract, it just really shows the truth is you never know who can be available and when. And that's why it's important to have all this talent and have all your chips that you can position into the middle of the table. That's the way that you can stay ready. Right.
Yep.
But guys, enough about the NBA for now, because we are at that point where, we are a few games away, from the end of the season. Next week, we'll celebrate the end of the season with looking at some, superlatives and looking at the awards, and all the trophies that'll be given out. But guys, we wouldn't be talking about basketball if we didn't bring up some of the incredible hoops over this past couple of weekends. In particular, I know we talked about it a little, we talked about it very briefly about how incredible the women's basketball has been, the national championship between LSU and Iowa, and how great Caitlin Clark has been, this entire tournament. But also, I mean, guys, as we're recording, the men's national championship game is tonight. It's been a wild couple of months, but guys, I mean, we have seen some phenomenal basketball on both sides of the court. That women's national championship game in particular was thrilling basketball.
Mm-hmm. And the Final Four when Iowa beat South Carolina to get into the championship, that game was awesome too.
Oh,
Caitlin
absolutely.
Clark's last 5 minutes of the game was insane.
The San Diego State buzzer beater was my gosh, man.
That was tough. That was a tough shot.
Absolutely.
Trailing
tough.
all game. Trailing pretty much all game.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we might not be seeing NBA talent in this Final Four, necessarily, or in this national championship, but I mean, UConn and San Diego State, I mean, both tough as hell teams, right? Do you think it speaks volumes though, just of how much trouble men's college basketball is in, that there's just way more hype around this women's national championship and this women's Final Four, and even coming out of it, even though the men's national title game is tonight, I still feel like the buzz is all about the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, there's just a higher caliber of players, like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. They're just better players. And on top of that, there's more emotion. There's more competitiveness. You're seeing the Caitlin Clark trash talk, and now Angel Reese doing the same thing, checking her ring finger. You can't see me. That stuff, I've seen more publicity about women's college basketball, at least on ESPN, SportsCenter, than I have really more so men's. And that speaks also to the ladies and the good job they've been doing, because it's always great basketball, men or women. You tune in because you love basketball, but the storylines are what get people hooked. And there's just more intriguing storylines with the national title game for the women's. It was. It was a great game, too.
Yeah. I also think, too, you look at the way that basketball's changed over the last 10 plus years, and I would argue that it tremendously benefits women basketball, right? Because Troy, we talked all the time about women's basketball is great, but the reason why it doesn't get the same hype and generation and popularity at the professional level is just because of the athletic differences between 7 foot tall men and women basketball players, who just, because of the way that genetics works, women are just inherently shorter. That's just the way it works, right?
Right.
But the way that the game shifted is it's become so much more skill-based,
Right.
so much more shot creation and shot generation based, that the truth of the matter is a lot of these women are more skillful players because that's what you have to really focus on to get to the top level in these sports.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I even remember, in middle school and early high school playing basketball myself. And a lot of the coaches encouraged us to say, hey, Northern Michigan University was down the road of Marquette. Go watch the women's team play because their fundamentals have, even in the past 10 years, 20 years, women's basketball fundamentals have always been better as far as ball handling, as far as passing, as far as just even shot form and free throw percentage. Those are the types of things that young players need to be watching. But to the point, as far as the publicity goes, I think people love that raw individual talent. And to Jeff's point, the storylines, because I think that goes so far. And in this men's team, sure, you kind of had a cool storyline with Florida Atlantic, making it to the Final Four. But there's really no generational talents playing against each other, really even much in the Elite Eight either. Right. I mean, and really traditionally in the past 10 years, as far as March Madness for the men's side, it's been so fun watching the head-to-head matchups in March Madness and not really seeing a lot of head-to-head matchups with individual, top 5 picks in the NBA draft this year.
Right.
That's turned at least me kind of off a little bit from the men's tournament.
Yeah.
Because I love that generational head-to-head talent or even coach-to-coach talent. And we really haven't seen that either.
I am so glad you said that, Troy, because literally the thing that was on the tip of my tongue is there's not even the star power in the coaching ranks in college basketball anymore. I look at the sidelines of the women's basketball team. By the way, LSU women's head coach, I'm not sure what her name is off the top of my head.
Mulkey.
Her suit game during the oh my goodness was incredible. Made me think about how we need that type of personality in men's basketball. We really do. Like, it's awesome to see.
Yeah, even on top of that, I'm glad you brought up the coaches too, because even Kim Mulkey, what she's done with LSU, like, people don't really realize she got there. And what we all know what she did at Baylor, successful there, but got to LSU, and in 2 years you win a national title. Like that. Like, you say what you want, but there's some elite coaching in women's basketball as well. So I'm glad you brought that up, Troy.
And creating a championship culture in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard to create that type of culture in a 5-year or a 10-year span, but do it in 2. Yeah.
Well, and then also you throw in, like, and this is, and this is still a thing in women's basketball too, but like with college basketball, not only is the one and done era make it complicated with getting attachment with storylines and all those things that you're talking about there, like with like women's players, they play college multiple years, right? But in addition, you throw in the fact that, like, not only do you have the one and done era, now you have the transfer portal too, and you have all these guys who are not happy with where their team placed, where they ended. Now they're going to be in the transfer portal. Now we're going to have, like, all these rosters are just going to be completely different every year. There's no continuity.
Yeah.
It's important. Yeah, for sure. I for me, and again, like, when I watch this tournament, the number one thing that just goes through my mind, WNBA, do not screw this up, because from the LSU women's team alone, just from Caitlin Clark alone, but then you look at some of the players that are already in the WNBA, rising stars like Sabrina Ionescu, but like players that, like, like the entire Las Vegas Aces team, you know what I mean? Just like everyone, like there is just such a bright future and runway for that league. And this is one of the first years in a while where, like, I'm excited to watch the WNBA after this NBA season.
You got a favorite team, Sean?
I mean, right now, like, not to be too much of a bandwagoner, but I mean, go Aces, baby. But I mean, I like side tangent. Bring back the Detroit Shock, please.
Amen.
Please.
One of the most, like, historic brands in women's basketball. And in a city that supported that team. Like we were
Won championships.
Yeah. Like we have pedigree. Unlike what the Tulsa Shock did or what I think they're the Dallas Wings now.
Yeah, Dallas Wings.
Yep. Just man. Just
By
straight
the way,
up deprived.
By the way, shout out to Becky Hammond too.
Big time.
Absolutely.
I was always a big fan of hers, so I'm not mad at the Aces. Hey, go Aces.
Yeah, 100%.
Indiana Fever has the #1 pick in the draft. I bet Boston's coming here. So
Woo! There you go. There you go. Yeah, man. I mean, it's just it's just it just speaks to it is an incredible time to be a basketball fan because we are going to I just think you're going to see elevated play in both leagues now, and I just hope the momentum carries into the WNBA season. I really hope it does. But guys, let's start wrapping up the show the same way we always do. I'm going to go to my guy, Jeff. Jeff, what you got for us this week?
You know what time it is, boys. We're getting to playoffs. So it's another edition of Pretenders or Contenders.
Ooh!
And I got two teams for you. And news actually just broke recently. I'm sure you guys know what it is about this specific team. They're getting a player back. And I know we talked about this current team, and I don't want to give it away because you're going to know who it is. Them struggling. They're still in the playoff picture. Right now, currently, as we're talking, they're a 6th seed, but they can still climb as high as the 3rd seed. And they're getting Andrew Wiggins back, baby. It's the Golden State Warriors. And I especially the road struggles, they have as many road wins as the teams that are going to be picking top 5. So, again, but we're talking playoffs here, boys. Golden State Warriors with Andrew Wiggins back. How much faith do you have in them in a kind of a weak West? I'm not going to lie to you. Not the strongest West. Right now, if they stay the 6th seed, they got what? The Sacramento Kings?
yeah.
You can go first, Troy.
Pretenders or contenders? Put your balls on the line, boys.
It's so hard with it being 78, 79 games into the season and saying one player coming back is going to switch you from literally a low playoff seed to a contender to me. I know they're the defending champs. I know never underestimate the heart of a champion, my favorite Vince Lombardi quote, right? But I have to still put them in a pretender category. I think they can beat the Kings in the first round. I think they can maybe even make the Western Conference Finals if everything plays their way.
So they're contenders.
But the NBA Finals, Jeff, I'm going to rule that out.
All right.
So, all right. Push comes to shove. They're pretenders, and here's why. I get that we look at the pedigree of what the Warriors have had in the past, and we've seen how they've been able to overcome adversity and win key playoff games on the road. Overcome a lot of obstacles. Really have incredible playoff moments. But a lot of the reason and a lot of the secret behind the Warriors' greatness was the joy that they played with, the togetherness that they played with, and the Warriors have none of that right now. That team, when you talk about a team that is 32-8 at home and 9-30 on the road.
It's the weirdest stat ever.
Right. You can't flip the switch.
It's clear that they have the talent. They have everything that's there. It's clear that there is a dynamic, team psyche issue. There is clear division within this locker room. There's clear division, from the very output. Right. And so when you look round around, can they beat the Sacramento Kings? I'm going to do you one better, Jeff. They're going to beat the Sacramento Kings. Next round, when they got to face off against a team like the Denver Nuggets, even though we don't necessarily believe, and we haven't seen them do a whole lot in the playoffs yet, when push comes to shove, when these games get tighter, what is it going to yes, talent is a factor, but togetherness has got to matter at some point. And this Warriors
Nuggets
team
won last night. Yeah, go ahead.
This Warriors team isn't together in the slightest.
Yeah, they're 5-5 over the last 10. So listen, even lately they've been struggling. They're getting Wiggins back. I'm gonna say they're contenders. All right, because it's more so about the West to me than probably the Warriors itself. Because if you look at the West, the only team that I think if I'm the Warriors, I fear two teams, I guess, Suns and Nuggets. Besides those two teams, like if you tell me those two teams square off in the second round in the Western Conference Finals, then I'm sitting there going, okay. Now you any other team I think the Warriors beat. So I get where you guys are coming from though. It's the most interesting debate. That's why I wanted to bring it up today. And the Warriors are teetering. So
right.
I'm interested to see if they can turn that switch if they get into when they get into the postseason.
But the switch I feel like is unturnable.
Oh, the lights are out. They didn't pay the Edison bill, Troy.
Right. That's where I'm going with
well,
it,
because because in order to get any of these series done, they're gonna have to win on the road at least one time, let alone multiple times.
Right. That's one time and then being undefeated at home.
Right? They have to get 16 wins, right? Like in order to win a championship.
Yeah.
And and you're telling me when the game gets slower, when it gets tenser, that this team is all of a sudden just going to get better on the road? Like, I just don't see a world where that happens. And even with Kevin Durant's, like, limited experience with the Suns, it's, when you watch him, it's like, okay, come on, man.
He's still KD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
he's still KD.
And it's like, it's Jokic, it's Ja, it's all these guys at the top, and then you look at the components they have around them. It's just I just don't think the Warriors team has the same juice that they had last year to overcome any of these things.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up today, because I knew it would be a long debate, because I knew I'd disagree with you guys, but I wanted to bring it up. By the way, if you made it this far on the podcast, comment down below. The Warriors contenders or pretenders? Like, give me your honest thoughts. But that's the team I want to go through today, the Warriors.
I like it. I like it a lot. Real quick, Phoenix, pretenders or contenders?
Oh, contenders.
Contenders for sure. KD's awesome, guys. Yeah. I mean, I know he had a rough first home game, but he's been playing well. Good bounce back. I just have no reason to think that they couldn't push a Western Conference Finals into the finals. Yeah. I have no evidence to prove me otherwise.
Yeah.
That's a scary team, man.
Yeah, if they're healthy, they can definitely get there. I still am of the opinion that the Western Conference is a competition to see who gets to lose to the Bucks.
Amen.
I'm still firmly in that spot because, again,
Gosh, it's too good.
I'm just of the opinion that when you just see that, that direct greatness right in front of you, it's like, just don't ignore it. Don't try to get cute. You know what I mean? We do it all the time. We really do. It's like, and it's just when the Bucks are this good, just tell me when a team can stop this team. Just tell me when someone can stop Giannis. Who's beating them 4 times out of 7?
Haven't seen anyone in the East do it with healthy lately. As long as Chris Middleton's healthy, I haven't seen it.
Yep, and even then, you look at the rest of the conference. Milwaukee 7-3 in their last 10. Boston 7-3 of their last 10. They had a dominant win against Milwaukee, the other day or like last week. But like again with Boston, they can literally they can come out one night and score 140. They can come out another night and score 96. Like they're so hit and miss, on and off, hot and cold. And then you look at Philly, they're 5-5 in the last 10. They're losing momentum. Joel Embiid and James Harden are both battling with injuries and health issues. Like, I mean, it's just it's Giannis's world. We're just living in it. That's just the truth. Troy, it's Mount Rushmore time. What do you have for us?
Yeah, not actually going to Mount Rushmore today. I wanted to have just more of a conversation. I know, right? It's been a couple weeks.
Wait, we don't have conversations here, Troy. What do you think this is? A podcast?
I want to just talk about this year, and I guess I'm still trying to figure out exactly the exact wordage that I want with this, but I want to see, where you guys' heads are at of what did this year teach us about the next 5 years in the NBA? Does that make sense? What did we learn about the league this year, the talent that's in this league, that's going to put us on the trajectory to look at the next 5 years of where the league is headed with talent, with load management, with ownership? I thought that for our fans, always looking ahead to the future. I'm that type of guy. I think this year was just such a great year with talent, seeing even Donovan Mitchell's 70 piece, same with Dame Lillard. I just think we can have some good conversations about what this year taught us about the next few years.
I love that question, Troy. Jeff,
Yeah.
Jeff, you can go first.
I would say, and I think, Sean, you guys would agree with me too, the league's in good hands. I think that's the big thing. I mean, you look at all the talent pool. Donovan, you mentioned him getting 70. Dame, and we know what Dame is, but more so the guys that have popped up. Like and I know Ja has stuff going on in the background, but when Ja's focused, Ja Morant's there, right? You have Luka. Like I said before, you have Donovan Mitchell. There's a ton of guys that are coming up. So we just talked about Anthony Edwards. That's another one. So I think it's taught me the league's in great hands because Cade's another one. So for me, the biggest concern, because I'm a huge LeBron guy, if you know me personally, you know that. I always wondered what the league would look like post LeBron. That was always my big thing. Like who's going to take the crown? And with the emergence now over the last couple of years, Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, like the league to me, man, it's not only in great hands or good hands, it's in great hands. And I'm excited to see more and more guys enter the league like a Victor Wembanyama, the guys that we haven't even seen yet grace the NBA court. It's an exciting time to be an NBA fan. It really is.
I feel like Vic is literally going to come in and change the entire landscape of the league. I literally like it feels like Thanos is just like on the horizon, and it's just insane. But Troy, I love that question. So I think let's talk basketball wise. I think a couple things. For one, I think we've realized, we talked about, how much, over the last few years, we talked about the evolution of the game. And, we talked about the small ball era and, how the game has switched to shooting threes. Well, what's the only way you beat small guys shooting threes and playing with speed? Big guys who shoot threes and play with speed, right? Like I think what you're seeing is positions as we know it are dead. I think like we talked about how positionless basketball was on its way. We're there. Guys like Jalen Williams coming out of the draft and showing that he can be playmakers like he is. Like you just look at the entire Oklahoma City Thunder roster. They have three different players in their lineup, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, who are all like these like 6'6+ ball handlers who can shoot the three, who could defend multiple different positions, but also have like keen playmaking, traits as well.
Right.
Like I think you look at all the prospects and the players that are coming into the landscape of this league. You even look at like them changing like the all NBA teams and taking out positions. That's because positions, just as we know it, are just, are dead. Right. I mean, they're still there to a certain extent, but they're definitely not the same as they were. And I would just say like the last thing, the skill level that we see on a night to night basis, I don't think we quite have an appreciation for sometimes. Like the amount of high scoring games that we had at the beginning of this year. I know defense wasn't always at its greatest at certain points, but I truly believe that the reason why we're seeing a lot of higher scoring games is because we just have better shot makers in this league than we've ever had. And this, like Jeff talked about how, when, we talked about like what this league's going to look like after LeBron and how, even like after MJ retired, there was a problem for a few years of, well, where's that star? Where's the star? Like we're just lacking that. The NBA has so many stars, they almost don't know when to put them on, like they almost don't know like how to put them all on national television.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's something that I think is really fun. And I've noticed that last year, and even the year before, is that every single team, all 30 teams, have a player or two players that you want to watch all the time. And that's and I think, talking earlier about how the league, makes basketball in December, November matter. I think they still have something there in-house, the league does, with what they have on each of the 30 rosters in the league. But for me, I think we've talked about this before when we're talking about, drafting, is how we've seen the importance of how you draft for talent over fit. And that to me is so exciting because that's not changing anytime soon. And the quicker all GMs figure that out, I think even the better the league is going to get as far as team by team individual talent that's helping each team, push for play-in spots, push for playoff spots.
Yeah. I think you're seeing also, like, not only like are you like you're seeing teams with more incentives to believe in what you have. I think with the amount of stars that there are in this league, I think that is causing less tanking, because you look at like a lot of times, like, these teams are just like, like the 76ers, like in the early 2010s, like they blew it up to like go and get all these players and these like prospects to like put on this team. But like Giannis was drafted 15th overall. Devin Booker was drafted 15th overall. Kawhi Leonard was drafted 13th overall. Like the truth of the fact is, so much talent is coming into the league on a year-to-year basis that you don't need necessarily to get top 5 lottery luck. As long as you hit on one of them and you get a star, like wherever you get them, and then you build properly around said star, the sky's the limit. Like, you look at how to maximize your superstar's potential. I think the Milwaukee Bucks have just given everyone the blueprint.
Yeah.
Like, go get solid players who complement his game, get guys who can shoot the three, play a lot of really good defense, but also players that are selfless, right? Like guys like Brook Lopez.
Brook Lopez, a good vet, yeah.
Who is a number one star at every team that he's played at, the number one option, who's literally transformed his game for that situation, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to look at Troy, like, to answer your question of where's the league going, what is the NBA and where is it heading, Brook Lopez is the perfect answer to that question. A guy who can still play that traditional basketball in the post, still do those things in the paint that you need him to do, still a super important defensive anchor, and is probably, because of it, going to win Defensive Player of the Year. But also, the reason why he's insanely valuable, the reason why he's still as good as he is because he's evolved his game. He can play in the perimeter. He can do all these different things. He can switch on multiple positions. Like, when you talk about like where the league is heading, you always look at the teams that are at the top and you follow what they're doing. The league's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get more perimeter focused. It's only going to get more positionless. In my opinion, if we've learned anything this year, I would say those are the things I've noticed.
And here comes Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Good segment, Troy. Good segment.
No, dude, that was a great. Dude, that's a fun question. And you know me, Troy. I love talking about big picture basketball, and like that's literally what I geek out on. So like when my eyes literally lit up when you asked that. So I love it. But yeah, man. I mean, guys, we got some basketball to go watch right now. The national championship game is happening, but also NBA playoff basketball is about to go down. The NBA draft lottery is coming up. This is going to be the place that you're going to want to be for all of the coverage, all of the content, all of the analysis, all of the guests, all the interviews. We are having it here on From Half Court. We on a new level. We're taking it to a different level, and you're going to want to be along for the ride. So be sure that you like this video, subscribe to this channel, but also be sure you follow my guys on social media so you don't miss what they're doing as well. My guy Jeff at Jeff Iafrady, and my boy Troy at Troy Sergey 44. But that is going to do it for today's episode, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.